We are awaiting a press conference in Houston. We're going to hear from the mayor there. You see the podium as we're standing by. He's got a lot to talk about, updating the efforts where they are now, what they still need, and what the process is, because as you know, they've gotten 40 inches of rain in some places. They're expecting up to 20 inches more. Levees breaching, and Eric, as you know, the situation is just going to be much worse before it gets any better.
Sadly, it is just chilling. The officials in Brazos County, just south of Houston, urging residents, they say, to get out now because the levee at Columbia Lakes, they say, has been breached. So sadly, this is continuing.
Happening now, starts right now.
This is a Fox News alert. Air Force One right now carrying President Trump to Corpus Christi, Texas, where he will begin to survey the devastation from Tropical Storm Harvey. Hello, everybody. I'm Molly Line.
Nice to be with you. Nice to be with you at home. Looks like there is more devastation to be had in and around Houston. I'm Leland Vittert in for John Scott. The president's set to land in just over an hour, as forecasters predict Harvey will dump another foot of rain on southeastern Texas and southwestern Louisiana. 14 people have been confirmed dead. That death toll is expected to rise when the floodwaters finally recede and the search can begin. That is not expected to happen anytime soon in Houston, where the Addicks Reservoir is reportedly now overflowing for the first time in history. That comes despite a controlled release of water yesterday aimed at preventing an overflow. President Trump commending the work of crews and volunteers who have rescued thousands of people.
Things are being handled really well. The spirit is incredible of the people. The coordination between all of the different services, as you know, has been going very well. Great respect for the governor. He's done an incredible job, and I look forward to the trips.
We are also getting word of a levee breach in Brazoria County. We're keeping an eye on that, and we'll bring you more information when we have it. We also have Fox team coverage this morning. Peter Ducey waiting for the president's arrival in Corpus Christi, and Matt Finn is in Houston. But first, we go to meteorologist Janice Dean. She is in the Fox Extreme Weather Center with the latest on what's next for that region. Janice.
Hi, Molly and Leland. Yeah, we are dealing with record-breaking floods. Unfortunately, the National Weather Service had to actually add a new color to the maps to display over 30 inches of rainfall, and we have just surpassed that, over 40 inches of rain. South Houston, 43. But we are getting word that Friendswood has had a rainfall total of 48 inches. That would put it at the top of the list as far as wettest Texas tropical systems. That was Amelia back in 1978, and now we will add Harvey to that list unofficially. And once we get that number, that the National Weather Service has told us that is verified, we will put that up there. The wettest tropical system ever in U.S. history was in the 1950s, 53 inches over Hawaii, and we might even surpass that. The watches and warnings, we actually have the potential for tornado watches and warnings today that extend for southeastern Texas in towards Louisiana. We are getting flooding in New Orleans right now from this system. Still a tropical storm, 45-mile-per-hour sustained winds, still raining in the Houston area, and we have on and off rain in the forecast for the next 12 to 18 hours for Houston. I want to stress, I know this is a Houston story, but we have seen epic rainfall northeast, west, and south of Houston. Baytown, epic numbers there. So we are thinking of everyone in Texas and now Louisiana as this storm continues to move. Future radar doesn't move much. Doesn't budge for the next 18 hours, 24 hours, still bringing the potential for showers and thunderstorms across southeast Texas in towards Louisiana. New Orleans as well. Earlier on, we had a couple of tornado-warned storms, so severe threat as well. There's Wednesday. And as we get into Thursday, Friday, finally we will start to see this thing move. But the damage is done, catastrophic. It is still life-threatening, obviously. We have flash flood warnings in effect for Bay City up towards Houston and Galveston, now Lake Charles. Major flooding on all of the river gauges. Storm totals they have never, ever seen before. So it's going moment by moment. Any inch of rain is not welcome in this region. Tropical Storm Harvey, still a tropical storm, expecting it to be so over the next 6 to 12 hours. Eventually Thursday, it is going to start to move. It'll get picked up in a cold front and a trough, something that we've hoped for over the last couple of days. And finally, we will see that move Thursday, Friday, Saturday across the Ohio River Valley. But the problem here is that we are still dealing with inches of rain in the forecast over the next several days. Houston area, 6 to 8 inches on top of, the 40 inches that they have seen. Galveston, 12 to 16 inches. And we could see an excess of over a foot of rainfall in parts of eastern Texas in towards Louisiana, across the Gulf Coast as well. So this is a tragic situation, unfortunately, that's unfolding. They will be assessing damage for months, if not years. And finally, in the forecast, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, better news. But maybe too late, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Molly.
it still seems so far away. Your reports are so important right now because they reiterate that this is still an ongoing situation, that the storm is far from over. Janice Dean, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
And getting worse, as we just mentioned, there are reports this morning that for the first time ever, Houston's Addicks Reservoir has overflowed. That's just west of the city. And there was a tweet a couple of minutes ago from Brazoria County, just south of Houston by about 50 miles, that their levee has been breached. And on this tweet, a red notice to, quote, get out now. And authorities say that if the Addicks Reservoir is breached as well, it will dramatically affect nearby neighborhoods, but they are unclear as to how it will impact the city as a whole. Get this, the dam spillway has not been activated in the reservoir's 70-year history. Matt Finn in Houston at FEMA's command post on the southwestern side of the city near the Addicks Reservoir Dam. Give us a sense, Matt, it's been bad. If these two reservoirs are breached, how much worse does it get?
Well, Leland, we were just at the reservoir, and it is a horrifying picture. That body of water there looks like a great lake. We are right now at what's considered ground zero, FEMA's headquarters on the southwest side. As you can see, they have all types of trucks here. They have boats, rafts. These trucks are what are being referred to as people movers, because these are going to go into the neighborhoods hardest hit and pick up people. Right over here to my left, the U.S. Coast Guard. And up here we have a gentleman from the Houston Fire Department. His name is John. He's kind of become the commander here. John, most important today is saving lives. Talk to us about how you guys are going to do that.
Well, what we have right now is we're still in the rescue mode, and our focus is saving lives. We have 2 task force assets right now. We have a Type Reef from Nebraska and a Type Reef from Ohio. They're here to assist us. We have Coast Guard assets. We have our local resources, our Swiftwater assets that are here, ready to go, and we're funneling 911 calls through this West Side Area Command.
So basically what happens is you guys get a call for someone needing immediate assistance, and you rush out to do it using any one of these vehicles around us.
That's correct. That's correct.
John, we wish you well. Thank you for your time. Leland, we're on the southwestern side of the city, which was considered one of the hardest hits in general to begin with, and now to think that another wall of catastrophic water could be flowing this way because of the levee overflowing is just unimaginable for most of the people here. So we are actually teaming up with FEMA today, and we hope to bring you some of the stories and some of the recovery efforts, hopefully none that involve anyone being hurt, but we will be with these guys throughout the day, and we'll bring you their stories. Leland, back to you.
Well, incredible, and if that wall of water does come down, they're going to have a lot more people to rescue. Matt Finn, stay safe. Incredible work over the past couple of days. Molly?
Well, new word of links between the Russian government and the Trump team during the 2016 presidential election, with one aide reportedly boasting, "Our boy can become president and we can engineer it." How the White House is responding. Plus, it's the storm that never stops, Harvey unleashing relentless rains on Texas. How much will the state get before it is all over? We have these staggering numbers next.
This is a landmark event. We have not seen an event like this. You could not draw this forecast up.
Harvey is on track to be one of the worst flooding disasters in U.S. history as it pounds Texas with rain again for the 4th straight day. It has already dropped 15 trillion gallons of rain, with 5 to 6 trillion more gallons forecast by the end of tomorrow. That is enough water to fill all of the NFL and Division I college football stadiums in the country, more than 100 times over. Sometime today or early tomorrow, parts of the Houston area will break a nearly 40-year-old record for the heaviest rainfall from a tropical storm, 48 inches. That was set by Tropical Storm Amelia back in 1978. Leland.
Well, President Trump and the First Lady now on their way to Texas. They land in about an hour or so at Corpus Christi Airport to get a firsthand look at the damage and the recovery effort. Ken Paxton, the Texas Attorney General, told America's Newsroom a short while ago the disaster now unfolding in the state, and we've heard this word before, is unprecedented.
We've never seen anything like this, but despite that, it's been amazing to me the cooperation between our state government with Governor Abbott, with the Trump administration and local officials. I think they've done an outstanding job given the stress on the system and the fact that the storm just never stops.
Well, joining us now, Daniel Halper, contributing editor to the Free Beacon and the Weekly Standard. Daniel, good to see you as always.
Great to be here.
If we think about the short time of President Trump's presidency, 8 or so months, of all the things he's faced, this is sort of the most directly in his wheelhouse of a crisis.
Yeah, look, he's a commercial builder. He's been building his whole life. This is, I think, a time for him to sort of reset his presidency. And I don't mean that he should be sort of overtly political, but because of the human tragedy here, he should basically move down to Houston, I think, try to redevelop and regrow and rebuild Houston. I think it's going to be a multi-year project, and I think President Trump is uniquely qualified to do something along those lines to really help out the people there. And we're seeing the storm, it could get worse in the next few days. And of course, once the water recedes, then the cleanup and the actual damage, I think, will be seen. And it's going to be, I think, a lot worse than even the pictures now suggest. Right. But simply from an emergency management standpoint, this sort of plays to his best strengths. Here he can be an executive. This is an executive branch role. Congress doesn't have a whole lot to do with it. Right. When he tells FEMA to do something, they do something. When he tells the U.S. military to go down there, they do something. Is this a chance for him to reset the narrative, not only going forward, but also going back? No, definitely. And it's a way for him to show that he cares about humans and Americans whose lives are at risk and whose lives will be lost in this storm. I think it's an opportunity for him to do some really good here, and whether he takes it or not, we don't know. Today's trip, I think, is important to show that he's interested, but it's of course only the beginning. And again, there's parts that he can't even get to today, given the catastrophe down there. But I think he will have to come back again and again and again, and really just take things under control. As you say, it's an executive. This is where an executive like President Trump could shine, and I think it would, really unite the country behind him. We know the president has a trip to Springfield, Missouri, scheduled for tomorrow to talk about taxes and tax reform as it relates to small business. I was talking with a radio talk show host earlier from St. Louis who said, do you think this trip is even going to happen? The last thing in the world you want is a split screen of the president talking about tax cuts and rescues going on in Houston. To that end, does this sort of put on hold everything in Washington, from tax reform to health care reform? All of a sudden, you can't put on hold the debt ceiling. What's the broader implication? No, definitely. I think it does. I think it sort of reawakens politicians around the country and says, we are here to serve people and we need to help people out. That these petty little fights that we've had, we can't do that over, say, funding for Houston and other, we can't sort of have these esoteric debates that really have nothing to do with people who are literally drowning or are in fear for their lives. And I think it does, or at least it should, really reset people in their conscience, and they should look at this and say, how can we help, and try to move forward that way. Forget about the past and it should be a unifying moment. Well, we have certainly seen so many Americans answer the call to their own peril, oftentimes going in and making these rescues. You hope that politicians answer the same call. On to this, and this story would be a lead story on any other news day. Two new reports show links between the Russian government and the Trump team in the lead up and during the 2016 presidential campaign. I know you've been working on this story as well. The Washington Post reporting that Trump attorney Michael Cohen emailed Russian President Vladimir Putin's personal spokesman during the campaign last year to ask for help advancing the stalled Trump Tower in Moscow. Also, the New York Times publishing a series of emails between a longtime Trump associate, Felix Sater, and Cohen, where Sater wrote, quote, "Our boy can become president of the USA and we can engineer it. I will get all of Putin's team to buy in on this. I will manage this process."
Cohen telling Fox News in a statement, quote, "I ultimately determined that the proposal was not feasible and never agreed to make a trip to Russia." Also said that at times Mr. Sater's language could be colorful, which from his emails, one could certainly agree with that part of Mr. Cohen's defense. Thoughts? Is this more smoke or we've gotten to fire?
I'm not sure it's fire, but it's definitely a lot of smoke. This is very damaging. I mean, step back. The charges against President Trump are that he was colluding with the Russians. This suggests that there was reason for the Trump side to collude. I mean, that's exactly what the charge was, and I think it's very damaging. And also, it opens up this whole new front. We've had reports about perhaps Mueller is looking into the Trump organization's finances. This gives, I think, a broad leeway into allowing Mueller to look into the Trump organization and those people associated with it, including President Trump, into their finances. And I think it opens up a whole other front on which really this investigation can really take off and I think become much more complicated and really include a lot more people than was previously believed.
All right. It does, and I know that you hate to make everything political and you hate to make everything about the hurricane, but they are inextricably linked right now, and they have become this way. Does the hurricane put all of this on pause?
I don't think so. I mean, it does, in a way, it doesn't for Mueller, right? Mueller he's in Washington. He just continues sort of as he's going. But I think for President Trump, it should. Look, there's nothing he can do about this investigation. It's going on. It's going to happen. It will, sort of proceed at pace. But he, as a political leader, should refocus not on this, because there's nothing he can do about it, and focus on the rebuilding of Houston. Maybe move down to Houston, essentially, and try to rebuild the city.
Let me get this in quickly. This sort of flies in the face of the then candidate Trump telling everyone, I have no links to Russia, I don't do business with Russia, and at the same time, clearly his associates are trying to get a deal done in Russia. It flies in the face of that. Is that enough, or is there something else? And if so, what's the something else that Mueller has to get to?
Well, it doesn't appear that there's any crime, right? So Mueller's, right. I think, Mueller's looking for a crime. I'm not a lawyer, but I don't see what the crime here is. He's a private businessman at the time. He's allowed to talk about potential businesses. So what exactly is the crime? I think Mueller is looking for some sort of crime, and as far as we know, we don't know what's happening behind closed doors. As far as we know, he hasn't gotten there.
Well, that's the only thing for him to look for, essentially, and that's his job.